We've got the Fort Bend Independent School Superintendent will be speaking next month. We're planning a trip to Transtar later on in the year. We've been to the port. We've had HCC. We've had a number of interesting topics, and we're going to continue to do. But today, I think, is probably one of our most important and interesting luncheons we've had, in that we have a congressman that represents us that I must say personally, he is a friend of our city, and he is a friend of the district that he represents. But first of all, he is my personal friend, and he and I both have each other on speed dial. We're not afraid to call each other at any time of the night. And let me tell you what, this man, I don't know when he sleeps, but he and I have had conversations very late at night over things. But let me just tell you a little bit about our congressman. He took office and began his 5th term as U.S. State Representative in January of this year, representing the 9th Congressional District, which you're in. He currently serves on the Financial Services Committee, where he sits on financial institutions, which is kind of dear to me, he knows, and consumer credit, which should be dear to most of you if you got a credit card in your pocket, as well as oversight and investigations, and is the ranking member. He holds the position in the Democratic Party as the assistant whip. He was born in New Orleans. That's New Orleans. Then he drifted over to Florida and attended Florida A&M, Howard University, and Tuskegee Institute. He earned his JD degree in 1973 from Thurgood Marshall Law School. And after graduating from law school, he co-founded and co-managed the law firm of Green, Wilson, Dewberry, and Fitch. And then in 1977, he was appointed judge of Harris County Justice Court, where he served 26 years before, I guess you could call it retiring. If you call this retiring, I don't know what it is, kind of like me. But he retired from there in 2004. He's received numerous awards for his service to not only his community, but to our country. The Texas Association of Realtors Legacy Award, the Texas Black Democrat Profile of Courage Award, the AFL-CIO MLK Drum Major Award. I'm not sure how you did on that drum major's job there, but Ebony Magazine's 100 Most Influential Black People, and the Mickey Leland Humanitarian Award. The funny thing about this, if you ask Congressman Green, it's a funny thing because we did this earlier, if you ask Congressman Green, how are you? His always reply is, better than I deserve. And that's his comment. Welcome our Congressman, Al Green.
Thank you very much, Mayor. They have me wired for sound. It's an honor to be with you today, friends. And I'd like to just say thank you to a good many people. So let me do this quickly. I have staffers with me that I have to thank. I have Kevin Dancy, who's with me. He's my district director. Kevin, would you stand so that they can see you? Give old Kevin a hand, please. Clarence Holliday was here. He had to step away. You know him as Doc Holliday. Would you give him an expression, please? All of the city council people who are here, I thank you very much. I have to single out my special representative, the Honorable Ron Reynolds, and I single him out because he and I share something in common. We have children. His wife is the mom. I am the godfather, however. He is the father. Would you give Ron Reynolds a big expression of appreciation? I have to single out my lawyer, Michael Harris, who is here. It's a wonderful thing to have your lawyer with you. This is my lawyer, Michael Harris, one of my lawyers. Also honored to have my realtor here today. You read about my investments, it's because of this lady. She has really been a friend to me, the Honorable Elizabeth Collins. That's my realtor. Give her a hand, please. I've got one of my longtime friends. I haven't seen him in many, many years, and I'm honored that he took a moment to come by. Bob Merchant is somewhere. There he is. Bob Merchant is here. Now I've made the enemies of all of my other friends by not mentioning them, but I've got plenty of other friends here. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank the mayor for his very kind words, those introductory remarks. But I do have to remind you, friends, that introductory remarks are at best approximately correct, Danny. This is best exemplified by one person being introduced and another person was seated next to the person that was introduced. And after the introduction was made, it was said by one person, "So you are the Mr. Smith who made $1 million in oil in Texas recently?" And he replied, "No, that's approximately correct." He said, "Because you see, it wasn't in Texas, it was in Louisiana. It wasn't in oil, it was in lumber. It wasn't recently, it was 5 years ago. It wasn't 1 million, it was 3. And then he said, it wasn't made, it was lost." And then he went on to say, "And by the way, my name is Jones, not Smith." So introductory remarks are best approximately correct. And if I figure out how to get this back on me, I will have done well today. There. I also want to thank some people who are not here. If you know me, you know that I always do this. I have to thank the persons who make it possible for us to have all of these great opportunities that we have in this country. These are the people who make real the great and noble American ideals. These are the persons who go to distant places, Lovelace. These are the people who serve in our military. And regardless as to how you feel about the various wars, AC, you ought to want every one of them to come home safely. So I'm going to ask that you would join me. Let's give a special expression of appreciation to the persons who serve us in our military, the men and women who make it possible for us to have liberty and justice for all, government of the people, by the people, for the people. These are the people who make it real. If you're a veteran and you're here, stand. All of the veterans. Let's have the veterans stand, please. Give the veterans a big hand, please, for what they do. Thank you very much. This will not be a speech on veterans, but I do want to say just a couple of additional things. I had the good fortune to travel recently, and I went by a VA hospital quite fortuitously. I literally took a wrong turn and ended up going by this VA hospital. It was not in my plan to go by. But as we went by the VA hospital, I saw a sign over to my right in front of this hospital, and the sign read, "Come in and see the price of freedom." Come in and see the price of freedom. The people who serve us don't always return the way they left us. And when you go in to see the price of freedom, you'll see people who no longer have an arm to hug a baby that was born possibly after he or she, after he left and the wife was left at home to take care of the family. A person who doesn't have a leg that he would ordinarily have and who was a star athlete. These are the people who are willing to give their all for us. And while I know we've said that we love them and we appreciate them, I'm going to ask that you, if you have an opportunity, go by a VA hospital. I think they have a time for you to go by and just visit. They welcome the opportunity to meet and greet people who care about them. We annually go by the VA hospital here in Houston. If you'd like to join us, you can do so. And we take a flag, we take a copy of the Constitution. And it is not unusual for someone to say to me, this is the first time I've had someone from my government to come and thank me for my service. And it tears at my heart when it's said to me. And I'm going to beg that you just show them some appreciation when you see a veteran. They really make a difference, and they put it all on the line for us. And I never want to see, and I do see it, a veteran on the street with a sign that says, homeless, will work for food. This is the richest country in the world. If we can spend $1 trillion to put them in harm's way, we ought to spend whatever it takes when they come home to make sure that they have the best health care, good housing, and a good job. That's the least a grateful nation can do. Let me take a moment to say a word about Mayor Owen. He and I have partnered together, collaborated together. Some might even say we've conspired. But we've worked together through the years, and it's been a good relationship. It's been quite beneficial. We have, under his watch, and with the help that I have been able to provide to the extent that I was able to provide it, we've brought back to your city more than $22 million. I think Mayor Owen deserves a special expression of appreciation for the way he brings tax dollars from Washington, D.C. back to your city. Let's give the mayor a big expression of appreciation. I think it appropriate for me to just take a moment and give you some of the specifics. $893 million for cops, community-oriented policing. This is important. If you are a business person, you understand the adverse impact that crime can have on your business, even if it doesn't impact your business directly. The indirect impact on your business is significant. $893,000 for the COPS program. $23,000 for bulletproof vests. He cares about his officers and he wants to make sure they're protected. $251,000 for crime victims. $634,000 in a grant for energy efficiency. $166,000 for traffic signal replacement. $366,000 Hurricane Ike relief. $463,000 for radio communication consoles. $589,000 for staffing to help in the emergency responses that you might have. And $250,000 for hazard mitigation study. These are just some of the things that he's done for you. I know that you've given him one expression, but when a person works as hard as this mayor does, I believe the least that we can do is let him know that it means something to us to have him on the job, working hard. Give him one more expression of appreciation, please. Mayor Allen. Now, I'm going to reserve most of my time for Q&A. I do want to say just one or two more things, and then I'll go to the Q&A. There's a big deal being made about health care. And I want to give you health care from a different perspective, if I may, please. And then I'll take Q&A. But I want to go back to 2009. And I'd like to explain to you why we passed the Affordable Care Act. In 2009, when we were considering the Affordable Care Act, we were spending $2.5 trillion per year on health care. $2.5 trillion is a big number. Very difficult to get your mind around it. So let me give it to you in a different way. $2.5 trillion is $79,000 per second. $79,000 per second. We were projected to spend $4.4 trillion by 2018. That would be $139,000 per second. $139,000 per second. That would have been 20+% of GDP. The system could not be sustained as it was growing. We had to do something to bend the cost curve, and we also had to do something to cover the more than 45 million people that were uninsured. In Texas, we had more than 6 million people uninsured. In Harris County, 1.1 million people. More than 20% of the state's children were uninsured. We had 45,000 people dying every year because of a lack of insurance. That was one person every 12 minutes. We had people working full-time, more than 21 million, full-time, without health care. We are the richest country in the world. At that time, 1 out of every 100 persons was a millionaire at that time. Don't let people convince you that we're broke, because we're not. 1 out of every 100 persons at that time was a millionaire. Today, 1 out of every 60 persons is a millionaire. 1 out of every 60. We've got about 120 people in this room. We have a couple of millionaires somewhere in this room. Don, you're smiling? One out of every 11 households is worth $1 million. This is a rich country. Just because you're not rich, do not assume that the people around you may not be. There are people in this country with money that they have earned, and they are rich. And this is a rich country. So do not assume that we cannot afford some of the things that can benefit some people who've not been as fortunate as we have been. In this country, if you are an enemy combatant and we capture you, and we should wound you in the process, when we capture you, we will give you aid and comfort. If you rob a bank and on the way out we should harm you, when we capture you, we'll give you aid and comfort. If you are on death row and you're scheduled to meet your maker next week, if you get sick this week, we give you aid and comfort, and then we send you to meet your maker next week. So we can give aid and comfort to the enemy combatant, to the person on death row, to the bank robber. We can provide a system that will allow hard-working Americans to have affordable health care in the richest country in the world. We can do it. We really can. And that's what the Affordable Care Act is all about. What does it do? I think you need to know. And I will accept additional questions on this and other topics. I know there are many other topics, and I'm just going to broach this one. But I want you to know what it does. There are people who are not as fortunate as I have been, and as a good many of you are. They are born with pre-existing conditions. Prior to the Affordable Care Act, they could not get insurance. Born that way. By the grace of God, you and I are healthy and don't need it. Who don't have pre-existing conditions. Senior citizens in the twilight of life. When you need pharmaceuticals the most, many people were not getting pharmaceuticals. And by the way, President George Bush is the person who passed Medicare Part D, which helps us with pharmaceuticals, but we didn't fund it. Affordable Care Act funds it so that senior citizens can have the pharmaceuticals that they need. Young people don't have jobs, need health care, can stay on their parents' insurance policies until they're 26 years of age. Insurance company can't decide that there's a limit to the amount of care you can receive, a cap. Insurance company can no longer spend 30% of what they make on administrative cost. There's a cap, not more than 20%. These are things that benefit hard-working American people. And it's my belief that the Affordable Care Act in the years to come will be one of the best pieces of legislation that I voted for in the Congress of the United States of America. It'll take a moment for us to sift the sand and get the pearls that we need such that it'll perform as it should. We'll have to tweak it some, but when you've got millions of people uninsured in the richest country in the world, we can find a system that will get them insured. Let's talk about the individual mandate for just a quick moment. This has caused a good deal of consternation, the individual mandate. Well, here's what it says simply. If you can afford, Al Green, to buy health care, you're not going to be able to decide not to have it until you get sick, and then decide that you'll go to the emergency room. In 2009, we were spending over $100 billion a year on people who were going to emergency rooms, getting their health care, and didn't have insurance. You're not going to be able to do that now. If you can afford it, note that I said afford it, then you either buy your own insurance or you'll have to pay a fee so that we can continue to cover you. It's not right for some people to have other people pay for their health care when they can afford to pay for it themselves. That's what the individual mandate, simply put, is all about. So I am hopeful that as we progress, we'll be able to tweak this system. We'll be able to do some things to mend it. But I have pledged that I'm going to fight to make sure we don't end it, dear friends. And I've said to people, and this is no secret, if I should have an untimely demise, I'm going to fight for it as long as I'm alive. But if I should have an untimely demise, I will come back and haunt the Congress of the United States of America if they try to repeal the Affordable Care Act. I'm committed. Thank you very much. Now, having said these things, let's do some Q&A. I enjoy the Q&A. So I'll start with this gentleman. I bet it's a healthcare related question. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Who are you and your fellow members of the legislature going to join the Affordable Care Act?
I plan to join as soon as it's available to me. October 1st is when we enroll, but it becomes effective January 1st. So effective January 1st, I will be a part. Sorry? I'm gonna join the exchange, and I don't know that you call it waiving. I'm giving it up, whatever that means. I'm giving up whatever I have now through the congressional process, and I will join the exchange. I absolutely will. And I've always said that I would, so nothing has changed. Let us do this. Let me do this, if I may, please. Let me take one question from one person at a time. It's been my experience that if I continue, I'll allow one person to ask me a good many questions, and there are other people who won't get to ask any questions. So let me go to the next person, and after we finish, sir, I'll come back to you, and you'll have another shot at me. How's that? All right, that's fair. Okay, who's next? We may be back to you already. Here's a person right here. Yes, sir.
Hello? Perfect. Thank you for coming. I recently graduated from graduate school, and I would go to my university presentations where it's talking about the cost of education. Now, I personally went to a private university, which, as of right now, costs about $42,000 a year. And across the board, when the school was talking about their peer institutions and everything as such, the average rate of tuition increase for a school, not only undergrad, but graduate school as well, is at 4.5%, which, when you're looking at it on a yearly basis, if your tuition is somewhere between $35,000 or more, which even public schools are slowly inching towards, is coming out to about $1,000 a year, if not more, per year. And that's for tuition, not including textbooks, other fees, living costs.
I have to ask you to get to a question because I want to get to a few other things.
What are you or your fellow congressman doing to help either stem the cost of tuition increases or provide more aid for students who are looking to go back to school?
We have passed legislation for Pell Grants, you're probably aware. I don't recall the exact amount at the moment, but I remember that it was a substantial amount to assist with Pell Grants. We also recently, if you'll recall, we had the interest rates on the loans at 3.4%, and they were about to double to 6.8%. We have passed legislation to prevent the interest rates from doubling back up to 6.8%. We do as much as we can, but a lot of this emanates from the states, and we'll have to do some things at the state level to stem the cost and to bend the cost curve. But in Congress, we've dealt with interest rates, and we've dealt with Pell Grants, and we've also dealt with the amount that parents can borrow to help fund the educations for their children. All right, let me go to the next person. I saw a hand in the very rear. The gentleman must have moved. Okay, we'll move here. Yes, sir.
Could you just give us an update of the transportation?
Transportation. We had the transportation HUD bill on the floor, and in the process, it was pulled. So it's hard to prognosticate what will happen. My suspicion is it'll come back to the floor, but whether we'll be able to pass it or not is still debatable. I'm not sure, to be quite honest with you. And this may be a good opportunity for me to answer a question that you did not ask, and that is, why can't we get along? So let me answer the question of why we can't get along for you. There's a simple answer to what appears to be a very complicated circumstance. There are all sorts of reasons that factor into the equation, but I'm going to give you one of the key reasons why we don't get more things done. By the way, not a lot of people will agree with what I believe is a part of the solution. And I'm on record already, so I'm not going to say anything to you that I haven't said already. But a part of the solution would be to reinstate earmarks. You want the benefit of earmarks, sort of like wanting beautiful crops without rain. You want the benefit of earmarks, but you don't like the process that causes you to get the benefits. Friends, what we've been talking about here, a good deal of this was by way of earmarks. This is how your tax dollars are returned to you. We should never have a bridge to nowhere. Shouldn't do that. But, and when we have one, we ought to eradicate that, take care of it, and then continue with the process that helps us to bring our tax dollars back to our districts. That has worked quite well for us. When we eliminated earmarks, we eliminated more than the tax dollars coming back to the district. We also eliminated the glue that bonded and bound us together. Example, in a transportation bill, there might be something in for the member from New York's 9th Congressional District that I might not be enthralled with. But I certainly like what I have for Missouri City, for my hospital district, for the rail line, the things that can benefit my constituents I like. We got transportation bills passed. We never had a problem passing a transportation bill when we had earmarks. We never had a problem passing a farm bill when we had earmarks. Earmarks make the difference. Now, you don't like to see the sausage being made, but boy, is the product good. So we may have to find a way to get back to that process. Or we can continue to use our persuasive powers to get things done. You don't get to Congress if you can't talk. So everybody there can talk, all 435 of us. And talking alone does not solve your problems. If talking could solve your problems, you wouldn't have any problems. We need the earmark process. I'm supportive of it. The people in the hospital district, I'm not going to call names, but they're supportive of it. The people who want that rail line are supportive of it. People who want to put engineers and contractors back to work are supportive of it. It's the process that has made the difference. So I hope that we'll get back to earmarks, and then I can guarantee you we'll have a transportation bill that will pass. Okay, let's see if there's another question. Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything being considered on a congressional level to fix the credit bureaus? I'm in the mortgage.
The question has to do with credit bureaus, Fair Isaac and the others, to fix them. I'm not sure what the fix is that you're talking about, but I will comment on the credit rating agencies, as they're called. These credit rating agencies do make quite a few mistakes, if you're talking about mistakes. I have helped many people who have had their credit records. They had misrepresentations on them, information left out of the record that should have been included. Just so many mistakes, and it's almost, I won't say usual, but it's just not uncommon to find mistakes. So you should check your credit report so that you can see if there are mistakes on there, and also it'll help you to know whether someone else is using your credit. It does happen, believe it or not, more often than you might think. This comes before our committee, and we've had Fair Isaac before our committee. Our hope is to, they're private enterprises, by the way, but our hope is to have them understand, and we try to get this point across, how important credit is, and they know, to each individual person. So we do our best to encourage them to make sure that those records are free of as many errors as possible. But it is a private enterprise, and there's only so much that we can do with private enterprise. Okay, yes, my friend.
Show us what the Congress is doing for border security, to improve border security.
Wow. Yeah, we've more than, I think we've doubled the amount since '09 that we spend on the border. In the immigration bill that passed the Senate, we've added, I think, about $40 billion more for border security. We can secure a border, we cannot seal a border. So no matter what we do, we may still find some intrusions, but we're going to do our best to know who's coming into the country and who's leaving the country. It's important to have a secure border, but we won't be able to seal it. And I think that there are some who would like to make sure that not one person ever can get across the border. And that's a great idea. That would be ideal, but the reality is I'm not sure that we'll achieve that ideal. And for many who do not know, many of the persons who sought to harm us, they did not come across the border under the cover of darkness. Some of them flew in first class in $500 suits. So there's more to securing the country than securing a border. We want to secure the borders, but we also have to secure all of the points of entry into the country. That would be the points, the ports. We have to secure the airports. We want to secure all of the points of entry, and sometimes we overlook those. So border security is a priority. Okay, who's next before I give this gentleman one additional question? Yes. Yes, ma'am. We do have health fairs, and we invite persons to come out. Here's the inspiration for our health fairs. A good many persons are just not as fortunate as we are. And it's easy to simply say, get a job. Well, you can get jobs that don't provide health care. There are people who work full-time and live below the poverty line. Full-time. I'm going to come back to your question, but I've got to digress for a moment. Full-time. Not everybody makes what one hedge fund manager made, which was $3 billion one year. $3 billion. To put this in proper perspective, it takes a minimum wage worker working full-time, minimum wage. By the way, I'm so proud of that hedge fund manager who made the $3 billion. I wish I could make $3 billion. I wish each of you could make $3 billion. There's nothing wrong with being a millionaire in the United States of America. I want you all to be millionaires. He made $3 billion. A full-time minimum wage worker would have to work 198,000 years to make $3 billion. 198,000 years. And the hourly employee is going to pay ordinary income tax. The hedge fund manager pays capital gains, carried interest, meaning a lot less, around 15%. I don't begrudge people for making money. I do think that we all should pay a fair share so that we can have the great country that we have. Pay a fair share of taxes. I don't gripe about my taxes. I try to pay them as soon as the bill arrives, if I can. But pay our taxes. So back to your question. Not everybody was as fortunate as that hedge fund manager, as fortunate as I have been. And there are people who benefit from these health fairs because we have vendors who will come out and provide tests for blood pressure, cholesterol, various tests that people probably wouldn't get but for the health fair. So we continue to have our health fairs, and the people continue to show up and benefit from what we do. Not everybody is as fortunate as Al Green has been, as I have been. And I tend to want to make sure that the good fortune that I've had, to the extent that I can, I try to pass it on to others who have not been as blessed. Okay, one more here, and then this young lady here, and then back to my friend who had the first question. Ron, okay, all right, we'll go to this lady, to this young lady over here, and to State Representative Reynolds, and back to my friend who had the first question, because I promised if I'd give him another question. So let's start with the lady over here.
Okay, you were talking earlier about the health care reform and the Affordable Health Care Act. We've done reform there, but I was just wondering if there's going to be any reform or talk of reform in the insurance providers. Because when I didn't have insurance in college, I'd go to, well, we called it the doc in the box, and get my prescriptions and pay for everything out of pocket, and my x-rays, like I had a chest x-ray, bronchitis, and it was around $100. And then I had an x-ray just this past, like 6 months ago, and it's $580, and I have health coverage. So it would be better for me not to have health coverage to go get that x-ray than have to pay $580 out of pocket for just it wasn't an MRI, it wasn't a CAT scan, it was just a simple x-ray.
And the question again?
So is there going to be any talks of reform for the actual insurance providers and how that holds the flip side of it?
Yes, here's how we plan to impact cost. In the exchanges, you will have the opportunity to buy your insurance the way you can buy other items where you can compare prices. When you go into the supermarket, you can look at the store brand, you can look at the labels on other brands, and you can compare, prices. Well, you'll be able to do this in the exchanges. Right now, it is very difficult to compare one policy to another policy because, quite frankly, the legalese is difficult to understand, and many policies will word things differently, same thing but word it differently. So you'll be able to compare. It should be in language that you can understand. And this will create competition. Out in California, it's projected that the rates are dropping substantially. I've heard estimates of up to 40%, same thing in New York, other places where the cost is coming down because you'll have competition. You'll be able to compare the policies that are available to you. I think that's going to be of great assistance to you. But again, if you cannot afford insurance, then you will be able to get a credit such that you can still get a policy issued to you. We want every person to have insurance so that you can get preventive care, which means that it's going to cost us a lot less in the long run to prevent people from getting sick as opposed to giving you sickness care, which means we treat you after you have an illness. We're moving hopefully from a sickness care model to a health care model, which has preventive care as a part of the centerpiece of it. All right, I think this lady was next.
In your biography,
Yes, ma'am.
it says that you are an assistant whip.
Yes.
What is that?
An assistant whip. I'm glad you asked because before I went to Congress, I didn't know. And you're going to learn something that at your age, I assume that you must be about 10. How close am I?
1 year under.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm 65. And I didn't, you know why I care so much about Medicare now, probably. I have a vested interest in this. But with reference to, repeat it one more time for me, question.
The question is, in your biography, it says
The whip. Yes. Why am I called the whip? Well, the whip is the person who counts votes. You have to, when we have a vote on the floor, there'll be certain people that I have to contact to get them to at least see what the issues are and to get a response as to whether or not they're going to support or oppose a given piece of legislation. We call that whipping the person. Whipping is a means by which you help people to understand the issues. And it didn't start in Congress. It started with hunting many years ago when we were hunting foxes, as I understand it. There was this process of whipping to make sure that the fox would come out and the hounds could chase the fox. But we don't do any of that. This is just to get people not in line, but aligned. You help people align themselves appropriately. Thank you for your question. Okay, my state representative.
Congressman, you're doing an outstanding job. In the toxic environment that exists in Congress, and you touched on this a little bit, but do you think realistically that you will be able to pass comprehensive immigration reform this session?
All right, the question is about comprehensive immigration reform. One of the things that people who know me know is that I give the same answers wherever I go. So I'm already on record supporting comprehensive immigration reform. Maybe news to some here, but not news to those who know me. I think it's the thing to do, and I can get into another discussion about that, but time is not going to permit. I'm already over. I see that we're about 5 minutes over. So let me just say this to you. My hope is that we will pass comprehensive immigration reform. I think the opportunity is there. I know what the difficulties are, but I also know that it will benefit all of us if we get this done. We will no longer have persons who can use people who are not documented to suppress wages. That happens in the macro, because people who are citizens won't feel as though they don't have the right to complain if they're treated unfairly. That happens now. People who are undocumented, employers will sometimes say, and this happens, this is what I think I owe you, and this is all I'm going to pay you. Let's assume that the employer is mistaken. What is the redress for that person? Next point. If we do this, people who are undocumented will buy into the American dream. And I literally mean buy into it, because they will buy homes. And when they buy homes, they're going to help us with the housing crunch that we're having. It is projected that we will have nearly $1 trillion boost to our economy if we pass comprehensive immigration reform. So I'm hopeful that we'll do it for those reasons. One more, those who are my age on Social Security. We get a whole new group of people paying into Social Security. Social Security works with those who are benefiting, having those who are younger paying into the system, and it continues that way until those who are younger become older, and then we have a new group of young people paying into it. Well, I think that's a benefit. But now those are reasons why we should pass it. But here's a reason that I want us to pass it. A little bit different. I just believe that people who have been here, some who were brought here as children, not of their own volition, meant us no harm, worked and taken care of us. We talked about how we wanted them to come at one time. We had this conversation about undocumented being unwelcome. That has not always been the conversation. There were business people talking about the great job that they do and how hard they work. By the way, the business community seems to be supportive of this. The Chamber of Commerce has come on board. I just think that this is the right way to treat my fellow human beings. I want to do it because I think the arc of the moral universe, as Dr. King put it, is long, but it bends toward justice. I want to bend it toward justice. I believe it's a just thing to do. I believe Dr. King was right when he said life is an inescapable network of mutuality tied to a single garment of destiny. What impacts one directly impacts all indirectly. I think the direct impact that it has on them adversely has an adverse indirect impact upon me. And finally, I think he was right when he said injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. It's an injustice to treat human beings this way. And that's a threat to justice everywhere, the injustice that we impose here. So I'm for comprehensive immigration reform. I hope that one or two of you may be for it too. Now, let me get to my friend Mayor. May I please, the final question? Yes, sir. Okay, all right. Well, friends, I get to close with this. You've heard me say a lot of things, and some people assume that, boy, is he critical. Well, I do critique, but I want you to know this, and I say this from my heart to yours. I just believe that on a bad day, it's good to live in the USA. On a bad day, when your spouse is leaving you, on a bad day when you come home and the dog that you've had since a pup wants to bite you, on a bad day, if your spouse has to leave you and your dog has to bite you, let it happen to you in the United States of America. On a bad day, it's good to live in the USA. Thank you very much, friends. Thank you. I love you. I love my country.
Congressman, we want you to remember this day, and I'm not sure where you're going to put these, but we're going to present you with two pictures. This one today obviously shows the American flag, the Texas flag, but it's got that Missouri City flag on it. And then we have one of our new entrants signed to Missouri City, and we want you to have that too. So find an appropriate place for those. Kevin, help him find those, so people know that he is representing Missouri City, Texas. We also want you to come over here and have lunch with us in the brunch on a Sunday. So I know, you don't like anything but vegetables. I saw him eat that today. So bring a guest over here and come to brunch in this fabulous place.
For edification purposes, this is not a check.
That's right. That's right.
I don't want anybody to think this is a check.
It is not a check.
It is not a check.
That's right.
It entitles me to lunch.
It is entitling you to lunch. But
Mayor,
Congressman, thank you.
I want to do this. I want to thank you first for the wonderful gifts that you've given me. and I'd like to present you with a certificate of special congressional recognition. This is presented to the city of Missouri City, so that means that it's being presented to you and all of the council members who are here. On behalf of the constituents of the 9th Congressional District of Texas, I salute your continued commitment to promoting diversity as well as economic development and growth across the greater Houston-Fort Bend area. Mayor, you are among the very best. You are a great, great public servant, but more importantly, you're my friend. Let's give the mayor another hand, and let's have the paparazzi. Let's have, can I have the city council members, Ron, all of the council members that are here, would you come up, please, so that we can get a quick photo op together? Ron, if you'll come and join us. And as they're coming up, friends, for those of you who don't know, I am the Al Green, and I do sing. Yes.
And the mayor does too.
The mayor sings too. So as we're taking this picture, why don't you stand, and this is a great way to close an event. Why don't you, Mayor, let me give you this one.
Oh, yeah.
I'll take that one.
Yeah,
And let us all stand, friends, and salute the country we love by singing a closing number, one verse of God Bless America. Do not sing in the key of Al. Please sing in the key of love. And if you would join me, who's got the most melodious voice here?
You do.
I do today? All right. Let us do this. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
No, we don't hit this high note. No.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, thank you.